Congrats on making it to Lesson 10, Artist For Loops. Today you will predict the number of steps needed to increment in each for loop iteration and determine the start and stop values for multiple loop examples in the artist environment. You can log into code.org and double check that your username is showing in the upper right to ensure that you are logged in before you start. You can pause this video now and go work on your own. Return to this video and find the section on the puzzle you're on if you end up needing more explanation. Puzzle 1. Use a repeat block to draw this triangle that is 50 pixels wide. So we know we need a repeat block, a move forward 50 pixels block, and a turn. Use your finger or stand up to simulate which way to turn. Which way are we going? Yes, left. But how many degrees? Let's look at this diagram to help us. The interior angle of an equilateral triangle is always 60 degrees because 180 degrees divided by 3 is 60. So this turn is 180 degrees minus 60 degrees. So let's enter turn left 120 degrees. If you get in a situation like this and don't know the angle, you can always try trial and error until the angle works out for you too. If you're ever not sure what to put in the repeat, write out the code without a repeat and use pattern recognition to figure out what goes inside the repeat, like this. Great job! Go on to Puzzle 2 and work on your own. Come back to the video in the future if you get stuck. Pause now. Before Puzzle 2, make sure to watch the code.org video. Puzzle 2. I've put the code for drawing a triangle inside a for loop that counts from 50 to 100 by 10. Make sure you look at the code before you hit run. So it looks like our variable is called counter. We are starting at 50 and stopping at 100 and increasing by 10 each time. This inner repeat 3 is moving forward based on the variable and turning left 120 degrees to make a triangle. So it makes a triangle and then the variable gets a little bigger and it makes another triangle and keeps going until it ends up with a triangle with sides of 100 pixels. Let's press run and watch it slowly before we move on. Good work. Go on to the next puzzles and work on your own. Come back to the video in the future if you get stuck. Pause now. Puzzle 3. Use the last puzzle as a reference to complete this one. The smallest triangle has 20 pixel sides, the largest has 200 pixel sides, and each triangle is 20 pixels larger than the last. So let's add those values to our for loop. A single triangle involves a move forward and a turn 120 degrees. If you stand up and face the right of the room, which way do we need to turn? Yes, you simulated a left. It also looks like it will give us a hint if you need it. We need to use counter as our length. Let's press run and see what happens. Great! Go on to the next puzzles and work on your own. Come back to the video in the future if you get stuck. Pause now. 4, how would you modify what you've learned to draw these squares? They start at 15 pixels long, the largest is 300 pixels long, and each square is 15 pixels larger than the last. So let's go ahead and enter those in. We start with 15, we end at 300, and we're going up by 15. Good. Okay, now how do we draw a square? Think about how many sides do we have? What kind of turn do we need? And can we use a repeat? Pause here and see if you can put the code for a square inside our for loop. Resume when you're ready. I used a repeat for loop because there are 4 sides to each of these squares. I used a move forward counter times and a turn left 90 degrees. I used my finger on the screen to simulate the left turn. Let's press run to see if it works. Nice! Go on to the next puzzles and work on your own. Come back to the video in the future if you get stuck. Pause now. Puzzle 5. Just a little change to the code from the last image can create this drawing. Can you figure out what that change is? Hint, we need to remove something. Let's first enter the code we had from puzzle 4. Take a minute and think about what we could remove to make it work. Pause now. In our original code, it keeps using the same counter 4 times because it goes back to the top to increase. But in this picture, it looks like the length is increasing every time. Our angles still appear to be 90 degrees, and it still appears to be a left turn. Let's get rid of the repeat so that it doesn't make a full square anymore. Press run to check our solution. Good. Go on to the next puzzles and work on your own. Come back to the video in the future if you get stuck. Pause now. Puzzle 6. If you turn a little bit more or less than you normally would for a shape, it creates a neat effect. Try using some of the code from the last level, but turning 89 degrees to create this twisted square spiral. Let's get out a counter loop. In puzzle 5, we started with 15 and went to 300 with an increment or step interval of 15. We'll want to move forward counter pixels, turn left, but we are going to want to use 89 degrees instead of 90 in this time. Great job! Go on to the next puzzles and work on your own. Come back to the video in the future if you get stuck. Pause now. Make 3 small changes to the code from the last level to get this. Let's look back at level 6 and think about what 3 changes we can make. Take a minute and see what differences you see between the 2 pictures. Pause now to think. Okay. The first thing that I notice is that this line seems to be a lot thinner. The increase in length seems to be a lot less than 15. What about the turn? Is the turn the same? If I simulate it with my finger or by standing up, it looks like we're taking a right this time. For the step interval or increment, we may need to use trial and error to see what works. Too much. Let's try 2. Two seem to work well. Good work. Go on to the next puzzles and work on your own. Come back to the video in the future if you get stuck. Pause now. Puzzle 8. Remember back in the previous stage when we used a variable to control the number of sides in a shape? We are going to do the same thing with the counter variable now. This pattern starts with a triangle and adds one side at a time until it draws a decagon with 10 sides. Each side should be 100 pixels long. How will you use the counter variable from the for loop to recreate this drawing? So this time we are going to use the counter variable to control how many sides of the shape instead of the length of the side. The move forward for the sides will be a constant 100. The repeat that we use for putting down sides will change. But we also need to think about the amount of the turn because the angle needs to change every time too. Let's see if you can recognize the pattern. Hint, there is a connection with 360 degrees. Pause now to think about it. Okay, so if you take 360 degrees and divide by the number of sides, that will tell you how much we need to turn. So let's use math in our code. We also need a for loop and a repeat loop with counter in it so that it completes a polygon before it changes the counter. Our first shape needs to repeat its forwards and turns 3 times to make a triangle. Our last shape needs to be 10 to make a decagon. And we are increasing by one side each time. Great. Go on to the next puzzles and work on your own. Come back to the video in the future if you get stuck. Pause now. Puzzle 9. Let's put it all together. Using your knowledge of for loops and the counter variable, create this drawing where each shape has 2 more sides than the last. Make sure that each side is 10 times as long as the number of sides in the polygon. There do appear to be 2 hints available, but I'm not going to look yet. Looks like we're starting with a triangle with short sides, then each time the number of sides increases by 2, and it looks like the length of the side is increasing each time. We'll still need to use the 360 degrees divided by sides for our turn angle. So let's start with a for loop. We start with 3 sides, end with 9 sides, and go up by 2 sides each time. We need a repeat counter times to build the polygon. We're going to need a move forward, and we probably need some math for the number of pixels. The directions tell us each side is 10 times as long as the number of sides. So we could do counter times 10. And our turn is a right with 360 degrees divided by our counter, which is the number of polygon sides. Great! Go on to the next puzzles and work on your own. Come back to the video in the future if you get stuck. Pause now. Puzzle 10. Figure out how to use all of the things you've learned to create this image of polygons, all with 40 pixel sides. Okay, so we know we're going to need a move forward with constant 40 pixels in here somewhere. It says to remember that in order to create a spiral, you cannot close the polygon. That means that each shape will need to have one fewer sides than usual. If I use my finger on the screen, I can simulate which way we're turning. What do you think? I agree that we'll start forward and then take a right turn. We'll probably need the 360 degrees divided by number of sides again. So our counter should be the number of sides, starting with 3 because it looks like a triangle. And the next is a pentagon. So we're going up by 2 each time. If we count around the last polygon, we get 19 as our end point. The directions told us to draw one less side. So instead of repeating counter times, let's try counter minus 1 times. Great! Go on to the next puzzles and work on your own. Come back to the video in the future if you get stuck. Pause now. Puzzle 11. Look, there are 4 hints with this one. This is free play, where you can try to make a pattern like this. Let's see what the first 3 hints say to help us. So if it's like the last puzzle, we'll need a repeat loop, and I'm assuming a counter minus 1 again. A move forward. It was 40 last time. And a turn. It says to set our loop from 3 to 10 with an increment of 1. If I look at the pattern, I realize that the counter represents the number of sides. The third hint tells us there are 2 versions of repeat loops inside the for loop, one going each direction. We probably need the 360 degrees divided by counter for our turn angle again, like previous puzzles. I think the side lengths look about the same to me, but let's try some trial and error for that. We did it! Go on to the next puzzles and work on your own. Come back to the video in the future if you get stuck. Pause now. Puzzle 12, free play. Try making some drawings of your own using for loops. We've added a few useful variables for you as well, such as counter, length, and size. Start with a for loop. Include a move forward and turn. Choose whether or not you want to use a repeat. Do you want your polygons closed or open and spiraling? Play with the brushes and make it colorful. Press Finish when you are done. Congratulations on finishing Lesson 10. Have a great day!